Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, in the land of horror movies, scares are easy, but when there's a real idea behind something, that's what makes a film worth watching. And, you know, if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because, quite frankly, you're listening right now. Subscribe to the podcast, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, give us the old 5-star rating, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. We're everywhere. We're at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We are on the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagram. You guessed it, In the Seats, for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, you know, if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us a kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we're getting a little spooky, we're getting a little scary. We are heading into the Halloween season, if we're not already there. And we're going to look into the new film, which is opening this coming Friday at Cineplex theaters near you, also to our friends in the States. It's called Pray for the Devil, and it's another, it's one along the exorcism vein, but it's when a nun who, she's working in care, and she's a caregiver, but she's working at a school for exorcism, and she's going through the motions of having to care for people who may or may not need an exorcism, but she wants to learn, and she's eager to learn. And ultimately, she ends up preparing for an exorcism to perform, but she comes face to face with a demonic force that has some really mysterious and really meaningful ties to her past and why she ended up as a nun in the first place. And it's really, really a well done film. It looks at the issue around exorcism, and it's not necessarily about the gore or the pea soup, but it's about care and being a caregiver and understanding how to sort of talk and sort of reason some of these things out. And especially, there's a lot of allegories and a lot of sort of imagery when it comes to sort of mental health issues, and it touches on a lot of that as well. But don't worry, we still have a fair bit of demon possession and some scary bits going on too. But it is from director Daniel Stamm, who you might know from The Last Exorcism, which was a big one about 12 years ago, and dealt with the subject as well. But this one definitely has a different energy. We not only talk with Daniel, but we talk with the star of the film, Jacqueline Byers, who Canada's own Jacqueline Byers, if I do say so myself, and she plays the lead role of Sister Anne, and this is one of her first, if not her very first lead, and quite frankly, she does a fantastic job here, and she's definitely a star in the making. So I cannot be any happier for her, because, you know, got to support the Canadians, right? But they both do a great job, and we had the privilege of speaking with them both just around sort of the origins of the story and the themes around the film, and in sort of the feminist bent that it takes in a very positive way, and so very much more. They were in town a few days ago in advance of the release, and we sat down. But like I said, this coming Friday, go check out Pray for the Devil, because it's a good one. But first, enjoy our talk with Daniel Stamm and Jacqueline Byers, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one. Thank you so much for the time today, and congratulations on the film. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank
Now,
you.
I mean, Dan, I guess my first question is for you, because walk me through, I guess, sort of having this script come on your radar, because, I mean, obviously,
people know you from the sort of subgenre of, exorcism and that kind of thing beforehand, but this definitely plays with a lot of different energy.
It was interesting because obviously exorcism was the one thing on top of my list that I was like, I've done everything with it I could probably come up with. That's the one thing I don't want to do it again. And my agents know that they never sent me, it's not that they sent me exorcism scripts since Last Exorcism. This was the first one. And I was like, this is an exorcism movie, I don't want to read it. And they were like, no, you should read this is different. And then I did read it, and it was so different because Last Exorcism was based on the question, is this girl crazy or is she possessed, for 90 minutes until you get the answer in the very last scene. So we couldn't ever do anything that was clearly supernatural. We couldn't do the levitation, or that she couldn't do any, Whereas here, it was like, why don't we just cut to the chase? The script was basically like, you're in an exorcism movie. Let's not pretend like there's any ambiguity. Yeah. Let's just jump right in. And with that, you suddenly have an hour and a half of set pieces that you have time for, because you don't waste 45 minutes to the is this an exorcism movie or not thing. And that way you can just do a lot of stuff that you owe the audience, because you owe the audience certain set pieces. If you come into an exorcism movie and there's no contortion, people would go like, I want my money back right now. Yeah. But on the other hand, you have to make a movie that people that have already seen 20 exorcism movies, where they also go like you probably have seen one or two exorcisms. Exactly. So ideally, you are one part of our audience where it's like, okay, what do we give that man that he sees? And you are versed to the subtleties, so it can be very subtle. But what do we give you that feels fresh to you? So we, for example, you tell me if that worked or not, but the idea was, okay, contortions. What do we do that's fresh with contortions? Why don't we define contortions as there are two pilots fighting over the same steering wheel? It's the possessed and it's the demon. Yeah. And that is what the expression of contortions are. Yeah. And so ideally I would have to be able to stop Jackie at any moment and go like, your left hand, is that the demon controlling it, or is that the victim controlling it? Yeah? And if you feel that, however subtle, then we have taken something that we owe to give to you, but we've given it freshness because we've reinterpreted it in the context of our mythology of this movie. And if we can do that, then hopefully you as an audience is satisfied, but also the 13-year-old, I had after Last Exorcism, there was a 13-year-old who filmed a review of himself on YouTube about Last Exorcism, and it was his first horror movie ever. Really? Wow. And the innocence and the non-pretentiousness and the non-sarcasm with which he experienced what I would have thought are the most boring parts of the movie. But to him it was fresh and terrifying. And so I'm always like, I can't forget that 13-year-old. We have to make a movie where that 13-year-old gets what he's deserving if this is his first exorcism movie. Introduction. This will be his exorcist. Away from the quality of it. For sure. So you always make that movie for two audiences.
Now, something else I really appreciated is that, because, obviously in films like this, it's always been very clinical, like this is what it says in the book and this is what you do and yada, yada, yada. But it really feels like this takes almost a compassionate care turn towards this, this idea. And that really prisms through your character. And walk me through sort of your initial reactions when reading the script, because, correct me if I'm wrong, this might be the first time we've had a female lead in an exorcism film that wasn't the victim. Yeah, it is. It is, and what I think was so important is that it's not just a female who's becoming a priest and exercising the way that a man would. She's coming in with her own approach from a female perspective. With that said, I think that the questions she has for the underlying, I think our own demons play a really big role in this, and I love that it's about the why it's happening, instead of like the male, like we're going to fight this war and we're going to go to battle. She comes in and is like, why are we going to battle? What is creating this happening? Like what is creating this in the first place? And then my attraction to Sister Anne is, I have people in my life that have experienced a tremendous amount of trauma and don't let that trauma become their identity. Yeah. And I felt like it was almost a serving of those people. And then within that, she's flawed, and I love having I love to play characters that are flawed. They're more human. She's 24 years old. She deals with ego. She deals with things that are so human and relatable for me. The courage I think felt like I needed in that moment in my own life that I could draw from this character and bring into my own life. it's such a meaty role. It's like I couldn't imagine any female not wanting to play it.
Well, and in many ways, it's almost about, I mean, not just the fight, as it were, but understanding the fight and knowing where to sort of make your battles and where not to make your battles. And it's one of those things, in watching it, I really understood, or at least had a sense of sort of the issue between faith and science and sort of that collision therein. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, when you're making the film like this, can you do any research on this front, or is it a question of just trying to sort of combine what we know of the two as best as possible? Because obviously you're dealing with mental health issues, but at the same time you're dealing with issues of the church and possession, which you know, they don't necessarily like to talk about all that much.
The special thing is that our original writer, Robert Zappia, is a practicing Catholic.
Okay.
Which, like, if you take Last Exorcism, there wasn't a single believer behind the camera. Nobody in the team believed. Here, you had a script that was very different than what we ended up shooting, but it was also chock full of research. There were 5 different lectures in there that Quinn gave. Each of them felt like 8 pages long.
Yeah.
And I did not, when people always ask, what research did you do? I can say I did not do a shred of research, because what was in the script was already so much more stuff than we could ever put in.
Yeah.
And we wanted like a cinematic experience that was flowing, not a workshop for the exorcist. So, what was the question? What?
Just in terms of combining like research issues,
and
like with religion and science kind of thing.
And he did a lot of research and met with an exorcist.
Okay.
He's friends with, his son is friends with a deacon. How is Robert's son old enough to be, right? Weird. But he has a grown-up
I still haven't
son.
met Robert.
I still haven't met him.
Oh my God. Talk about making a movie in COVID.
I've never met our editor.
Wow.
Never been in the same room with him. Anyway, so he did all the research and met an exorcist, and that's where Dr. Peters came from, for example, because that is factual that the church these days will not take on an exorcism before psychiatrists haven't ruled out that it's any kind of mental disorder. And so that character was really interesting in that. Yeah. But back to the female, just listening to it.
Yeah.
So, what is so revolutionary about her is that she poses a threat to the church way bigger than the devil and the demon.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
she is saying the status quo is outdated.
Yeah.
Let's change everything we believe in and do it. And that she, as a woman of faith, says, I will let go of God's hand here, because so far in every exorcism movie we are reading from the Bible, and we're screaming the same Bible verses at the demon, no matter who the demon, no matter who the victim, and it's all about, and for her to say, okay, you priests, you really love the image in your vanity and your pride of you fighting the demon, how about we take a step back and we listen to the victim, and we listen to what the demon says, and then we don't make this all about ourselves. We're not the protagonist in this fight. We are a mentor and a coach for the possessed that also has always been pushed to the side. And in order to do that, I love this shot where she's closing her Bible. Like, that to me is the key to the character, where she goes like, I think in this moment my own words will be stronger than God's word. And for that rejection of the patriarchy, where she says, I don't need you priests, I don't even talk to the demon.
Yeah.
I don't need your God, my God, all that. You've done that for millennia. It hasn't worked. We're still dealing with demons here. Maybe it's part for a new approach. And then for Quinn to say, and you have notes. As
and
a
you have
perceived,
notes.
So,
well, he has 2 lines, that you have notes, and then it's not her relationship with God. It's, perceive her relationship with the devil. But it's interesting because people always ask about playing like the first female exorcist, but I don't think she thinks that way.
Yeah.
So from someone playing her, it's the weirdest question to answer,
Right, okay.
because I'm like, I understand how powerful it is in terms of storytelling, but from Anne's perspective, she's just doing her job.
But in the end, and that's maybe why there is humor in the movie, when he goes like, well, technically you're not the first exorcist, and you go like, well, in 600 years. She allows herself that little bit of fun
like, yes, I know.
It's kind of fun because she's so sincere throughout the entire movie.
And I mean, it's such an interesting idea too, because I mean, especially from a horror movie standpoint, we're used to the final heroine having a weapon or running around this, that, or the other. Your weapon is the idea. Your weapon is the concept, and that's such a powerful idea.
Huge. I love that you that resonates with you. It is to have an idea and then try to get it through as a woman and make your voice heard and not letting some people shut you up is I think it's a very relatable thing to experience and powerful to go through it.
Your weapon is the idea. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always thinking about what does that woman do right after this movie, because she has now rejected the church, where she has all her education, her formal education with exorcism is within the church. And now you're separating yourself from that, going like, I'm not a nun anymore. I'm now going out into the world to be a freelance exorcist.
But she's going to the Vatican.
Yeah, she is. But I mean, remember, like she's
the
going.
ending we have in the movie right
Yes.
now.
Yeah,
I'm talking
it
about
is.
the wrong exorcist.
No, this is what happened. Is I talked about the movie we shot 3 years ago, and I had an answer, and I was like, and someone asked me about where does she go. I was like, well, she goes out. I was like, it'd be cool for her to explore her sexuality. I'm like, wait, no, the movie changed, and she's now going
Because
to the Vatican.
the original ending
Right.
was that she is being offered this scholarship.
Yes, and she says no.
And she says no because you guys in the church are so oppressive. You can't be helped. I'm doing my own thing, which was I love even talking about it now.
I
love
know.
a lot more. But I think it felt like, and that's Colin's fault, squarely Colin's fault, that the church. Colin Salmon.
Nothing's wrong with Colin.
Colin successfully conveys such empathy and such an intellect and a willingness to listen that the church didn't come across as stuck in the past as it did in the script.
Yeah.
Which just like they can't be helped because they are so patriarchy, and it just felt in watching it, you were giving up, walking away from that. There is progress to be made. There is an entrance, and for you not to take it felt like giving up.
Yeah, but how crazy would it be to have a woman at the Vatican?
And now you're at the
Like,
But I mean,
that
it
we talked about
shows
those
different ways on how to fight, right? I mean, it's not a question of, like we said, it's not this rote way of how you fight it.
Yeah. Right.
It's learning sort of the different ways. And I mean, I look at this film as sort of the different way to make an exorcism film almost. Because like you said before, there's going to be those bits with the levitation and the bending and the contortion that'll make the fans happy, but then there's new bits.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I love the hair spot. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
This one.
That one, but also in the mouth,
yeah.
The eye thing, I will tell you, it's the most fascinating thing. Because we thought this is going to be the moment that the movie is going to be remembered
pulling.
for.
That was gross, yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. And Lionsgate was like, we need that. That's going to be our whole marketing campaign. It's going to be this. And then we shoot it.
It's the first thing we shot.
It's the first thing we shot.
First day we shot, yeah.
Jackie does a great job. It's in there. We go through test screenings. No one ever mentions it. Not as the favorite scene, not as the least favorite scene. It's just test screening, and we were like, oh, it's just edited wrong. Oh, it's just in the wrong place in the movie. We did a lot with that stuff. It just is being ignored left and right, which in the beginning was devastating. Now I'm excited about this because if this thing that to many horror movies would be the central moment is so negligible for this movie, that there's so much other stuff that people are focusing on, I'm like, great.
How important was it for you to sort of ramp up the intensity and the violence? Because this was a clean movie. This wasn't necessarily about the pea soup or, running around or bleeding or this, that, and the other. The severity of it all kind of ramped up. How important was it that this was a story that, to me, felt more psychological than opposed to sort of the visceral of the exorcist moment?
I actually always think that with the PG-13, because obviously in the horror community it's like, oh, it's PG-13. But what that actually means is you can't use that tool of the pea soup and the blood.
Yeah.
But you better crank up the psychological stuff.
Right, yeah.
So I think there are PG-13 movies that are a lot more horrifying than the R-rated movies.
We also didn't know we were making a PG-13 movie.
The sentence was, let's protect for PG-13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is the dumbest thing you can hear.
So then we would have things where Posey was covered in gore, and then it would be the died down version, or we'd have a swearing one, and then we'd do a not swearing take, and it was like, what direction is film going? But the thing is that we didn't need it, and I knew that it didn't need that in a way. I was like, you can push it, but it's not adding or taking away from the story that we're telling. We're in a church, like.
Right, the language
felt
felt authentic.
Without, like, I don't need to swear for me to get my point across.
Right.
She's badass without using the F word.
Of course, yeah.
We did have, though, remember when we shot the ending?
Yeah.
We had one
why
take.
didn't that?
We went back and forth about that forever. So it's basically like she at the very last second of the movie, she has her crucifix and the demon is there.
And she's going like, fuck, or
Fuck,
something.
fuck you. And she says, fuck you.
And I say, fuck you to the demon.
Which I stole from a Schwarzenegger movie, End of Days.
Oh,
I think.
Oh,
wow.
I think, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They can only do one fuck you, and they have this huge camera move where it's like fuck you. But because it's nowhere else in the movie, it's like, whoa, it's like a real thing. And that's what I was. And it did that.
Did it land?
But in a weird, wrong way.
Yeah.
It was almost like
changes the movie, kind of like The Baby.
Like The Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious from your perspective, because I mean, obviously, you know, this is going out into the world, and I mean, the horror fans are obviously a different crowd. Like, and I think this character, your character, has a real chance to resonate. And I mean, like, what is your perspective, sort of, you know, now that this is showing out into the universe? Like, are you happy with the performance? Are you happy with just sort of being able to have this chance? Because I mean, I think this is something that might last.
I am very proud of this movie. In terms of like having my face out there, I think that like cool. I don't know. I think it's always an honor to have fans in any capacity. Are we?
Almost.
Oh, okay. I like the horror genre to be like work in other films. If this provided me other opportunities, that would be amazing. But my favorite part about any of this is the acting. So hopefully it gives me other opportunities to do that in terms of like stardom, celebrity in any way. I don't know. That's not my forte
Maybe
cup of tea.
Come to like it.
Yeah, I probably would like it. It's just not
to
what I'm
think
like
that there will be
searching
someone
for.
in Cambodia who will fall in love with you. You will be his teenage crush. And you'll never see that country.
How
You'll
PG
never know
is this podcast, by the way? I was
It's fine. It's totally
I was
fine.
I'm like, it would be masturbation material on the wall.
Yeah, in Cambodia. How cool is that?
In Cambodia only, though.
No, I mean, just to put a bow on this, to wrap it up, I'm kind of curious, from both your perspectives, having made the film, what is it about the psychological end of horror that is the like the scares and the frights that we have in our head versus the ones that are on the screen?
Way scarier.
That are way scarier than the ones that you can put on the screen.
I don't know the answer to that, but the James Wan story, did I tell that in the last interview? Yes.
Yes.
Before making this movie, I was like, I'm going to brush up on scare techniques. I'm going to watch the James Wan movie,
Okay.
Conjuring, and write down all the techniques he uses. And I came up with two. The movie was over. I had written down two things. One was blast sound during a jump scare, and the other one was like do something that the audience doesn't witness and has to fill in themselves with Annabelle the doll.
Right.
She's sitting there. You go inside. You come back out. She has written something. It's terrifying because I didn't see her write it, and I now have to imagine how she wrote it. But I don't have the answer to why that is scarier. Why is it so terrifying for us to maybe loss of control, which is also why I think exorcism works, because the feeling that we lose control over our own body is so terrifying to us because it comes with like a disease connotation that's really real world.
I just think it's it equals each other's out. So like the guilt and shame that this film talks about
Yeah, totally.
is your own imagination. It's fear of something that potentially doesn't exist. This movie is talking about that and then playing up on that idea. Like, I think our own mind is the scariest place to be. Mental illness is horrifying. But I think a lack of forgiveness, like it's so easy to forgive someone else, but why are we so unable to forgive ourselves? It shows such humanity, but it like torments us. It's like, why are we tormenting ourselves and choose to do that day in and day out? And it's such a part of the human condition. And I think that like the more that a horror can jump into the unknown, going back to it and not showing everything compared to the new it makes it so much scarier.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's one of those things, especially with the guilt just letting us in. I mean, and that's the scary part. And I mean, that's the ride at the same time, too. And I mean, just thank you for this ride and thank you for the time. And just again, I think people are going to eat this up. They're going to love it.
Really appreciate
so
that.
much.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.